they found a woman's body inside the store's walk-in freezer in the stockroom in an employee-only area. Police scanners picked up almost immediately, and dispatchers were heard saying the complainant had found a naked female inside of the cooler. And that's one of those calls where you immediately stop what you're doing and say, wait, what? Like, holy what's going on? And when police arrived, they identified the woman as Dr. Helen Sanchez. She was only 32 years old, originally from Nicaragua, and was visiting Miami at the time. Investigators say Helen entered the Dollar Tree just before closing on Saturday night. Employees reportedly saw her come in, but she didn't buy anything. At some point, she walked into a restricted, employee-only area of the store and then into the freezer. No one realized she was there. The store closed then for the night. And Helen stayed inside that freezer until the next morning when she was found by that employee who was opening the store. So loved ones gathered outside as the police investigated, and you can imagine the confusion and devastation because at this point, no one can explain how a woman who didn't work there, who's just visiting Miami, ended up alone and locked in that stockroom in a freezer overnight. Dollar Tree released a statement saying they were aware of the incident and that their thoughts were with the family and they are cooperating fully with the authorities, which is great. And as more information came in about who Helen was, the story somehow got even more heartbreaking than it already was. According to a GoFundMe and posts from friends, Dr. Helen Sanchez was a respected anesthesiologist who specialized in congenital heart disease, which is work that has helped countless of families and children. She is also a devoted mother to 2 children herself, who live in Nicaragua and were described as the center of her world. Her family has referred to her death as a tragic accident and shared their greatest wish is to bring her body back to Nicaragua so she can be laid to rest at home, surrounded by loved ones. So funds are being raised to cover her transportation back to Nicaragua and for her funeral expenses. One of Helen's closest friends, Andrea Tamaro Campos, also shared an incredibly emotional post remembering their friendship. From being college roommates to traveling together just weeks before Helen died, she talked about Helen's personality, her laughter, her love of dancing and singing, and how excited she was to travel to Miami, which was actually to go and see her father. Andrea shared that one of the last voice messages Helen sent her was on December 9th, just days before her death. Helen was supposed to return home on December 15th, but she never made it. And police say they do not suspect foul play at this time. The surveillance footage doesn't show any signs of an assault or any foul play, and the case is currently being treated as an unclassified death while the investigation continues. But obviously, there's a lot of questions. Why did Helen enter an employee-only area at a store that she didn't even work at? How did she end up inside that freezer? Did the door lock behind her? Did she intentionally want to stay there overnight? Were there safety mechanisms that malfunctioned? And why was she found unclothed? Forensic experts note that in cases of severe hypothermia, people can experience something called paradoxal undressing, where the body essentially malfunctions and then the person removes their clothing. It sounds unbelievable, but it is a documented phenomenon, and it's one that's possible that in this case and investigators are considering, which I thought that sounded weird, but I'd actually heard that myself. So they're going to be doing an autopsy, including a toxicology testing, expected to provide more answers. And because Helen's body was in the freezer, evidence would likely be preserved, which would allow medical examiners to look for injuries, trauma, or anything that might suggest any foul play and lead maybe in a different direction. But right now, investigators are reviewing that surveillance footage, employee statements, store protocols, and trying to piece together what actually happened during those final hours of Helen's life. Miami police say they'll release more information once the medical examiner's report is complete, which hopefully we'll provide more answers when we see those toxicology reports and the autopsy. But until then, the case sits in that awful space where nothing really fully makes sense. There's still a lot of questions. A woman with this career that she loved, beloved by everyone who knew her, kids waiting for her at home, her return flight was even booked, and a trip that was supposed to be about family, ending in a place that nobody can really quite explain. And no matter how this is ultimately classified at the end of the day, 2 children are left without their mother right around the holidays, and a family is left trying to understand how this normal night on this vacation where she's going to visit her father ended up in just something so unimaginable.